I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
We're AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we're watching Spy Family Season 2, Episode 8. Like last episode, we just came back from vacationing. We're playing catch-up, so our intro will not be very long. But fireworks are about to happen, which what you said last episode, I believe, was murder can happen during fireworks.
Murder can happen during fireworks. It's kind of like the perfect cover for the auditory screaming or gunshots, anything that the assassins could possibly pull out as their weapons of choice could be disguised or hidden with the sound of the enjoyment of fireworks.
Yeah, and I mean, if we were already down to fight in front of people previously, what's it going to be like now? Probably more dangerous. Especially because I think Lloyd and Anya are trying to look for Yor at this point. Yikes.
Ooh, okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Sweet. Okay, that was Spy Family Season 2, Episode 8. That was a great episode.
I really want some tea now, but tea that actually tastes good, not tea that's notorious for tasting really bad.
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel better, it makes you feel better. I imagined it being something like akin to smelling salts. Like you're so down bad sick, but this just like clears your nostrils, you know.
I really like ginger tea because ginger is like such a strong flavor, especially if like you let the tea bag sit in there for a while. But I like it. It's like this like spicy, comforting flavor.
Spicy?
I don't know how else to describe it. I feel like I know spicy is not exactly the right word.
Yeah. What'd you think of the episode?
So this episode was pretty epic. In terms of what we were having, contrasting with kind of A plot, B plot. We had some fireworks happening, and Lloyd and Anya were getting to enjoy it with the rest of the people on the cruise. And all while that was happening, Yor was making fireworks of her own and having a really great time.
This was my favorite action episode of Spy Family. I thought the setting was gorgeous. I've never seen anything like it.
The setting was so perfect. It was like it was out of Anya's spy show that she watches, Bond Man. It was like
better than that.
Better than that. But it was just so awesome to have it happening with fireworks in the background. Everything was so perfect. The noise distraction. It was entertaining on so many levels.
Have you seen the movie Kingsman?
No.
It kind of reminded me of that occasionally. That's the only thing I can like really reach for. But it was awesome. I loved the fighting, and there was like an equal amount of gag to fight ratio going on. That was fantastic. I love the director with all of my heart, and I hope he's okay. I am really glad that they leaned into the whole gag of like the cleaning up after Yor.
See, that was great. I also appreciated that there actually was a bulletproof vest on Zeb.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
That was a really cool moment for him, especially after the last episode, and like don't underestimate me kind of vibe.
Me. It's obvious to us that he has had feelings for her for a very long time, and to get to do that show, and then so epic, he like grabs hold of the thing as they're falling and brings it shut really hard.
Awesome.
I was like, that was so epic. Like, I know it wasn't real bullets and he had a bulletproof vest. I've never worn a bulletproof vest, nor have I been shot with anything.
I'm glad.
But I'm pretty sure it still hurts. Like, it bruises.
Yeah.
From watching
broken ribs,
TV shows.
For sure.
I'm pretty sure it still hurts.
Yeah.
So.
What a guy.
What
Zeb's
a guy.
MVP. I like, because of the nature of the show, I don't expect too much when it comes to the choreography in terms of fighting, because most of the fights that occur are like that of an overpowered nature, that it's not even much of a fight. And with all of these different weapons and different styles and of fighting from these assassins,
and her kind of weaving between all those different styles,
but those different styles offered me this like choreography that I never expected from the show. Like, I loved Yor interacting in different ways and utilizing people's weapons against them or in ways that they would never have expected.
Mhm.
And the best choreography in this entire series, I think, we got with the sword guy this episode. I adored how he used his sheath to fight. I
Yeah.
adored how Yor managed to like block it with in between like the bottom of her heel and the heel itself. I thought that it was great that the guy, I don't think we got a name, and if we did, I apologize, but the way that he was moving about and using his obstacles was equally as cool as Yor does herself. He was like propelling himself over something Yor was running around. It was so cool, man.
We can obviously, as viewers, it's not weird to us that the villains or attackers that would be the last to run toward you would probably end up being the strongest because
Yeah.
they're the ones that are more patient. We get this kind of idea as soon as this cruise arc starts that most of the more seasoned assassins are possibly more patient and they're like, oh, I'm not going to cause any unnecessary things happening here, any unnecessary attention. They're going to wait it out. They're going to try to strike at like the most opportune time for themselves and their physical safety, but also to ensure that they get their money and can leave and get off the boat.
Yeah.
And so they're like being really strategic about this. And so of course you would think that the people kind of waiting back to see really what she has to offer, because isn't that one of the smartest things you can do? Is
You're also wearing her down.
You're wearing her down. Super smart, but you're also paying attention to her adaptability.
Yep.
What is she seemingly weak against? Can you notice a weakness in her?
You're also having to split the pay with
you
less people.
You also have to see smart on so many levels.
Yeah.
And so we have to be aware that whoever is going to be left is going to be really tough as an opponent. The sword guy at the end, what was really great there is you brought up, like, we have this overpowered Yor. We have this assassin in garden. She's so freaking cool. She's eliminating all these people. The director's also eliminating all these people. It's beautiful. It's effortless for a lot of the fight. And then we get to this guy with the sword. And I would say, like, yes, he was really strong, but what helped his case is dialogue that was happening at the same time. It seems like the guy that works off of, like, figuring out people based on, like, scent and smell, he also is probably one that likes to mess with his opponents on a mental level and an emotional level. And that's where he gets the upper hand on this overpowered character, is that he brings an element of conversation into it. He gets her mind thinking about something or something else other than what is happening right now in this fight.
I don't even think that was the intent. I think the furthest the intent went from him was, this is a business conversation.
Right. It doesn't matter if it's the intent of the character.
Yeah.
In terms of like writing, it's what we get. It's what we see as the viewer, is this overpowered character. How do you get her to have a fight with a strong opponent, but it to not feel like she can so easily overcome this?
Yeah. My favorite part of the episode, hands down, was the parallels between the deconstructing of what is the Thorn Princess and her motives and the lack thereof that coincide with the losing of the Thorn Princess attire.
Mm-hmm.
Like, her, like, I don't even know what you'd call it, like, other than thorns, like the ice pick type, like, weapon that she has. One of them breaking, her losing another. The idea that these aren't just for show.
Her hair's no longer in the style that it normally is.
And like the idea that these aren't just for show. She's able to utilize her earrings as a type of weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And as that's going forward, we're seeing her more and more question why she is fighting, what her reasons are at the moment. I wanted to read through at least a couple of the things that she said in relation to talking about Yuri. I just wanted to protect his simple life. There are many unreasonable sacrifices in this world. To make sure that I don't add to them, to reduce the number only by one, I need to thoroughly clean it. Things are not going to change. No. Now more than ever. and then she grabs the blade. This is one of my favorite parts of I love this episode so much. This is one of my favorite parts of the series, I think, so far. I don't need peace. I don't care if there is blood on these hands. Breaks the blade. Even if I live a life in which I'm bound to be killed sooner or later. The guy swings, your dodges, cuts through her dress. Even if I have to leave the Forgers. And then a flashback of Lloyd talking, be it for someone else or for a specific reason, having to endure a merciless job. That's something to be very proud of. I'm sure Lloyd will acknowledge me. He'll forgive me. I didn't expect this, if I'm honest with you. I thought that what we might be seeing is a coming to terms with not wanting to pursue this job any longer without motive. I didn't expect it to be a reaffirming because of the nature of what a job is, and regardless of what it is, Lloyd would forgive her and be proud of her.
I like that it gets... So I never wanted to never be an assassin again in the series. Like, obviously, these conversations she was having with herself were real, and they felt real. They felt like, obviously, on a lesser level, something real. And it felt really good to have that from her. It felt good to have the character thinking about her future and about this family as more so than just this cover and camouflage for herself. And I never necessarily wanted her to just be like, I'm never going to be an assassin again, and I'm going to be the best mom and wife ever. I'm glad that that's not what happens here. What I'm really glad about of what happens here is that we are closer to this idea of this person or this family accepting her for who she is.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm sure he will forgive me. Like, yeah, she doesn't go into, like, the simple, if they knew I was an assassin, they'd still love me. Like, there's progress that is being made with these ideas that she feels like there is a loving, caring, and accepting person waiting for her at the end of the day that she has found in Lloyd, that she is sure will forgive her and understand that there's complex reasonings for everything.
I think that I underestimated the show a bit. I think that what I assumed to happen was coming to a place where it's I don't need to do this anymore. What will truly make me happy is this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that in a way does go slightly against the nature of the show. I mean, think about who Anya is as a person. Think about what she's capable of doing.
And it's not like Anya's going to discard her gifts that she's been... It's not
it's
like
the
she
acceptance
can drop
of it.
It's
yeah.
the fact that she and others need to accept it, and she needs to know that if everyone else knew she had this ability, they would still love and accept her.
Yeah.
That's what... You're right. Like, that's what this story is supposed to be showing us. It's three people who are hiding who they are for many reasons, from fear that these people wouldn't accept them, from protecting it because it's their job to do so, and it's the safety of their job and safety of the people that they now live with. Many reasons, but to have one of them lose that would have been odd, I think.
I think it would have... I almost did a disservice to the individualistic, like, personality of each of the characters.
I want each of them to have a loving family that they are happy to go home to, but still get to serve themselves in whatever way they see fit.
I mean, it did make me very scared for a second where she says that, like, when she acknowledges that she could die, like, at any moment, because obviously that's the thing I want least to happen in regards to her own life, but also to Lloyd and Anya. But it's like a responsibility in that sense. And even though that Lloyd, in talking to Yor, wasn't talking about what his job truly is, it's the idea behind it. And I absolutely, like, oh my god, progress for, like, individual feelings for either Yor to Lloyd or Lloyd to Yor. the idea that in this moment Yor is looking not only at something that Lloyd said, but in regards to how his feelings would be towards her, and that being a motivator is so rewarding. It's so great.
Like this fear idea of death, like it's not just because of her job. That this is like a real conversation of like, you want to appreciate what you have. Like there is so many unknowns. We'll call into Lloyd's fears from last episode, which is the unknowns. There's so many unknowns out there. In Spy Family, we're in this really contentious time of war possibly brewing. We're trying to avoid it. But as we got that line from the director last episode too, about kind of like, as long as people are people, there's going to be violence. You need to be aware of the fact that there are those unknowns. You need to be aware of the fact that like you could die, whether because of the job you're doing or just because of life.
Yeah.
And the unpredictability of life and the people around you and the world around you, the natural environment around you. And you need to focus on appreciating what you have in those moments that you are alive.
I really, really love this show. I think that I often, like, I'm like, okay, even as, like, what, we just watched last episode right before this, and I think that after then, I was like, okay, I love and appreciate the show, and I don't appreciate what it gives me and how happy it makes me. But then after this episode, I'm like, holy shit, it's not just that. I think that there's really something different and unique about it. And I think that it highlights a dynamic that I don't often see in what I watch, or, you know, like, I love their family, and I love the way that they communicate and when they don't communicate, and it makes me like, I think that I'm so used to like a standard of how family in media is portrayed, that this is so empowering and different, and it makes me feel like, fuck yeah. Like,
I don't think you'll get this reference because there are a lot of shows or movies that you haven't seen, but it reminds me of the Addams Family. The Addams Family were created to be this kind of like family that goes against the norms. And there's something about when you watch the older movies, I haven't seen a lot of the newer stuff, but they are also kooky, quirky, and very much individuals, but they're also such a freaking loving family. Like they all love each other, but they're so like weird and fun and crazy, and there's something about that like I find similar here, that this is a family of people who are a little bit crazy what their jobs are, or they have crazy abilities.
Yeah.
And they might not feel like they could comfortably go into the world as themselves and be accepted by everyone else, but they know they'll be accepted at home by their family. And that's something that like reminds me of like the Addams
I've never
Family.
seen any piece of media that pertains to the Addams Family.
The Addams Family.
I know the jingle. Yeah. My older sister used to sing that a lot. But I'm so glad that all of these people found each other, that Lloyd, Anya, and Yor were the outcome, because all of them need it. Each of them as individuals need it and love it and benefit from it. And it makes me like, oftentimes in my own life, like, I get frustrated at the expectation of normalcy or repetition in decisions that we make. Like, should you be doing, like, other people don't do it this way, you should probably do it this way. Like, and you get what I'm saying? And like, you can be completely different and original, and it doesn't need to meet any other standard that majority of people do, as long as it makes you happy, and or specifically if you're like with people who make you happy and you are deciding that as a team. I love this show so much, man.
It would have possibly been a steeper road to climb in terms of writing to have had your and I mean steeper in like convincing yourself, the character, and the viewer that this feels good, if you were to write your completely dropping.
I disagree. I think it's such an easy cop out
I
to
don't
do that.
I
And
think
I'm
to,
so
no, to
glad
make
they
it
didn't.
convincing to everyone that it feels good and that it's right for her, I think that would be really steep.
I think that it would have been more of the same, and people would have been like, oh, okay, yep, I like that makes sense. I've seen that before, and it wouldn't have felt good, and it wouldn't have felt right. But and that's what I was trying to.
But I'm trying to say that that's why it would be hard to write, is because how do you make it feel good to everyone?
Yeah, but
that's why it'd be hard to write it to feeling good to everyone.
You mean that, like, to have it be successful and different?
Yes,
yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say, is that it'd be steep to make it feel good for the character, the person that wrote it, and the viewers, that she would make that choice.
But I'm saying that, like, earlier in the discussion, when I said I was doing a disservice to the show, I feel like I was expecting that because that's what I see so often. That is what I tend to see writers do in this kind of story.
I could see them making that, but I think that one of the big big flags that would come up in my face is reminder that this family is technically camouflage. Even if Yor feels like she cares about this family and loves it, and even if deep down the other members of the family feel similar, there is still a lot of progress that needs to be made to ever make this be something where she can just completely fall into it and just it be what her life is. Because it could disappear any day. It's fragile.
Thought experiment. Why wouldn't it work? Like, if you're here, couldn't be happier this is the direction that they're going. That's my favorite thing that happened this episode, among multiple other things. But like, if you're in this episode is like, Yori's fine now, flashback to the train scene, he can take care of himself, I don't need to protect the world, I can just protect my daughter now and our family and make sure that I can get home for dry cleaning and laundry, even if it's fake, even if this doesn't last forever and it's not real love with Lloyd, I don't need to kill any longer. And whatever happens next happens. Like, why doesn't that work?
I don't think it fits a personality to be like, I can just be totally accepting the unknowns here, and I'm not an overly, we have Yor being overly kind of anxious of whether or not she's being a good mom or a good wife all the time. I feel like if she, then that becomes her, sole thing that she does.
I'm not saying it would. I'm just saying she wouldn't be killing anymore.
Right.
You know, and why wouldn't that be baseline? Okay, yeah, like, I'm happy she doesn't have to kill people anymore, or is at risk of her own life, you know, or isn't risking her life.
Yeah.
Like, what if they went down the road of, I'm doing a disservice to even this fake family if I'm risking taking my life away from them. Yeah. They'll have to find another mom, you know,
I guess, I could... It's a choice that could be made, that her priority would then become this fake family, but then as a viewer I'd be worried about her on an individual level, of her getting her heart broken. What does she do next if this family doesn't exist? In the similar way of where Anya is in this, Anya doesn't have a job, she's a kid, and she's worried about no longer having parents.
Exactly.
Yor would be in the same boat as Anya at that point, because her whole life, her whole worldview would become the family unit that could possibly disappear.
That would be a part of it, sure. But whereas it is that way for Anya in her own life can be making friendships, can be excelling at school, can be doing her own... Yes, Anya, because she's the child here, it's a bit that in itself is a different scenario. Just because Yor isn't killing anymore doesn't mean she 99% of her life needs to be devoted to a fake family.
Yeah. I get that it could be done.
Yeah.
And it could have felt
good.
It. I just think it'd be incredibly hard to actually write in a way that would be satisfying to a viewer, because I don't want necessarily as a viewer to see this badass assassin woman then just be like, yep, I'm gonna go be a mom now. Like, I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but I need more time to be spent on that, like, transition and that decision. I need it, if you're gonna do that, it needs to feel satisfying. It needs to feel like what the character would really want to do.
I I don't think that there would be a way to do it in a satisfying way. Like, I think that it would make sense and it would be more of the same for me. She has had countless of interactions with people not being a spy, that she had to use her badass abilities to even protect Anya or teach her things for school. I think that it would have just been more of, okay, yup, that's what she's doing. They could even write it in a way that this is more empowering for her. That being said, this is extremely unique, and it makes me love the show even more because they didn't go that direction. And I'm embarrassed to say that part of me expected that to happen.
So it's interesting because what we're kind of coming up here is it was the harder choice to choose to keep her as an assassin.
Yeah.
And I think what we're identifying is it was the harder choice in terms of creating it to be super satisfying if it went the opposite direction. It was easier to make it go the opposite direction, but less satisfying, or like the chance of it being less satisfying was like definitely prevalent.
Yeah.
This is the more, I would say, the more like exciting and satisfying.
Definitely.
And so then probably harder to actually
execute. Yeah. It's like it's not safe. Like, it's not a safe territory to be in, which then produces the most exciting, compelling narratives. Well, that's with any show too, right?
I want to keep her as an assassin. Anya wants to keep her as an assassin.
I mean, my favorite stories in anime and not, but since we're watching anime, I'll keep it in there. My favorite animes that I personally have watched or we've watched on the channel are ones that make decisions that aren't the norm. Like the shonen style endings, you know? Like, one of my favorite mangakas is the mangaka for Hunter x Hunter, right? And the idea of Tagashi, like, he was in an interview in fear that he won't finish Hunter x Hunter. He was giving ideas of what the ending might look like, and in doing so described his process. This is going to sound like potentially sadistic or weird as fuck, but in his process, he goes about it writing what the shonen ending would be, writing what his ending would be, which is killing the main character, and then finding somewhere in the middle. And that's what he goes with. And, like, that shonen ending is kind of what I assumed this to be, or was going to be. And I'm so fucking glad it isn't, right? Like, and just like other shows that we've watched that, without risk of spoiling the fact that they don't have that ending, I won't name, but I can think of at least 2 or 3 that we've watched on the channel. Because they don't go that route, it makes the show itself, for me, much better and much more memorable.
As a romance lover, I also think that in terms of a possible future with Yor and Lloyd, we needed to keep her an assassin here.
Are there many romance animes that don't follow like a shonen formulaic? I'm using shonen as just like a baseline term here, but like a formulaic, perfect ending.
Any romances?
Yeah. That you've seen?
I can think of some that had some tragic kind of endings.
Like Horimiya, granted, the journey on the way was up and down. It felt very, like, fulfilling but safe. Bloom Into You was very different, and that's one of my favorite mangas, period. But that was more about the style of interacting. Given was kind of the same way. Whisper Me a Love Song was definitely the same way. Like the ending, I guess, is the end that in itself, in the nature of being a romance show, you're almost like the difficulty skyrockets in terms of an ending if you want to make it not, oh, they're together. You know, like, you have to do that if you want, like, a quote-unquote good ending, don't you?
Okay, so there's a few romances I can think of, and I don't necessarily want to name them just for fear of that being like a major spoiler to that work. But we have both seen one where one of the characters is no longer alive by the end of it. So that's a way to end that romance off.
Was it a movie or a TV show?
A movie.
Okay, so that's different.
No, but that was one of my examples.
Okay.
So we've seen it where one of the characters isn't necessarily alive. I would say for romances, what I've seen, if they want to keep the ending with the two main love interests being together, if they want to keep that, which obviously I feel like you do if you're writing a romance, for the most part, you want to keep that. What you have to then do is surround them with other reasons why it feels tragic or uncomfortable or unsettling. And in some ways I've seen they've put focus on the person adjacent to them who is getting brokenhearted because of this love story.
So I think this is a really good example of ending up together, but doing it in a non-typical way. It's a movie, and just to like evade potential spoilers if anybody hasn't seen it, I'm gonna say the name of it in 3, 2, 1, your name. The way that they end that movie and go forward with their relationship, because of the nature of time and how their connection works, it's so different, like, going forward than, like, because it's like a baseline of what am I even knowing? What do I even think? That it like sets itself up to be different and unique.
Yes. See, I really, really wish that you have seen my romance show example.
Yeah.
That I want to be able to bring to the table.
Let's put it on a poll.
Discussion, and I just don't even feel like I can say it right now.
Yeah,
then if you ever watch it, then you'll go into it.
Don't say it.
So we're not gonna say it. But we can have this conversation.
Yeah.
But at a later date when we've seen more romance
I don't watch a lot
together,
of romance stuff.
Yeah. You need to see more, and not just like...
I just imagine it being difficult as a writer.
To write an ending for romance that's maybe not just so typical that they end up together and kind of ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's your goal, I guess, for a happy ending, but it's the nature of how you present it. Because
why are you deciding to write a romance? Like, what's your thought process for the audience? Do you want them... I would say for the most part, most people that would write romance would probably want to give their audience warm butterflies.
Well, I'd say that the majority, like, from my experience, which is very little, the biggest proponent in a good romance story has very little to do with the ending, and is majority about getting to that place.
Getting
right?
to the point where you, like, that's always the best, is not necessarily the ending where they, like, confess to each other. The best part of romance is that middle stuff of them falling.
Yeah, or like
the little moments,
the
or maybe like they don't realize they've fallen yet, but it's so obvious they have in hindsight. Like that stuff, the meat in the center of like falling in love, is the best part of a romance.
And like how it differs. Like that's my main reason for why I'm so obsessed with Bloom Into You. Like the way that they write the individual characters and how they interact with each other during this like potential budding romance is like what sold it for sure, and one of the most memorable things to me about the story. But I just like, with that last like 5% that is the ending of it, it is, I imagine, difficult to make it memorable rather than past.
It's
like,
easier to make the center memorable, the actions that cause the falling in love, than the ending of a romance memorable. Definitely. Especially if you don't want to like kill a character.
That was a wild movie.
Yeah.
Wild.
Okay, what were we were talking about Lloyd
I love
and
this
Yor,
episode.
And we love this episode.
Zeb's cool, the director's cool. I'm glad that the other coworkers seemed to hit it big momentarily in the lottery.
You know, in the gambling, they were gambling, they got money. You know, they should be really glad they were given the day off.
I hate gambling. I don't like gambling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not what you'd be doing on the cruise ship.
I might be
this
doing
night.
it on a cruise ship. I don't.
If there was a fireworks show at the same time, I think I'd be at the fireworks.
But then the casino would be the most amount empty.
And you'd want to be where there was less people?
Yeah.
I bet the golf room would also
Yeah,
be
but the
empty.
golf course looked kind of lame. It was just like straight shots,
It didn't look fun.
Yep.
You're right. Okay.
Let's go drink some herbal tea. With
little bears on it.
little bears
Tastes
on it.
really bad.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time.